Oh, say, can you hear?
Yet another red light.
Well, I'm gonna spill all
the secrets you're holding
about the spaceships up there and the aliens down here and all history,
which is totally fake.
There was a case where a man was with his family and he was in North Houston on I-45, the interstate, and they were approaching Houston from Conroe area. As they got to about where Intercontinental Airport is, there became a traffic jam and they actually ended up having to come to a stop. It was to the point where evidently cars had been sitting there for a while when they had pulled up that people were getting out of their cars. 10 or 15 minutes later, some emergency ambulance type vehicles showed up. There appeared to have been a bad traffic accident up in front, blocking the lane, both sides of the highway. And then we started realizing it was an aircraft crash that had come down right basically on the interstate in line with the airport, which made total sense because the airport, we were right there virtually at Intercontinental. During the time that this family was stopped, the father was walking around and on the edge of this little overpass where they happened to be stopped, and he slipped and he fell off the edge about 7 feet to the slanted area below where he was standing and broke his arm. He had to be taken to a hospital and put a cast on, and that is the last thing he remembers about that event. Nothing about the plane crash, nothing about anything else. Now, under hypnosis, he remembers everybody being taken out of all the vehicles and taken into a craft that was hovering over the highway that was at least 5 miles across because it obliterated the sky over the interstate, covering Intercontinental and the whole neighborhood up in that area of the interstate. There wasn't anything about it in the paper except for a car accident at that spot on the interstate. One day we got a call from a lady living in the T.C. Chester, North Shepherd area, and she said she thought that she had aliens inhabiting her house. So I went over there with Derrel Sims, who is also an investigator of aliens and everything else. He's basically known all over the world. And at that time, I was president of UFO, and he was one of my chief physical investigators, exclusively with abduction situations, basically, and physical evidence. And so she said she had some physical evidence, and so I took him with me. And she said she saw these little, what she thought were aliens. She described like a little gray, except these grays were only about 6 or 8 inches tall. And she showed us a picture that she had taken in her living room that you can see a reflection in. The TV's turned off, but in the black screen, you can see a reflection of something like behind her in the room. And it appeared to be a little alien, but it was only maybe that tall. And it wasn't a clear, definable image of a creature. And she said, well, there's a place out in the backyard where I saw these creatures also. we went out and looked at the backyard, and other than that, we did not really see anything unusual. And then she said the other day when I left my house, I was on the interstate on 610 North, and she looked up in the sky, and the sky, like letters started forming in the clouds that says, "You are going to die." She freaks out, goes back to her house, and so she's freaking out, decided she's going to leave this house completely, because if it's not aliens, it's possessed. So I decided I would take somebody with me that knew something more about the demon or theological end of this strangeness. And so John Combest went with me, and you know, we kind of went over the house again, went through some of the evidence. To him, he said, I don't see anything here like alien related. This actually seems more like some sort of demonic situation or demonic possession. We, on this visit to her house, brought a Geiger counter with us. We went out and started checking the yard, like where she saw the things in the backyard, and there were actually some hot spots. There were some places reading like well above background radiation. They were small areas, but they were there. And it got actually a little bit more intense toward the fence separating her backyard from the neighbors next door, and we actually went over to the next door neighbor and knocked on the door and asked if we could go in their backyard and look around, and we found that there was a major spot in their backyard, maybe it's like 12-foot circle area that basically gave off a much higher than background radiation. And then she called us one day, and she said something was strange. She said the man across the street, who is elderly, had to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he was looking out the window while he was in the bathroom at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and he saw some people come up to my driveway and get into my pickup truck and back it down the driveway and take it away. At the time, he was so confused, he didn't think of calling the police or anything when this happened for some reason. An hour or 2 or 3 later, it was still before it got light, but that same early morning, he was in the bathroom to go to the bathroom again, and he saw these people pushing this truck back and putting it back in the spot where it was sitting in her driveway. Well, when she heard this from her neighbor, she called us, and John and I went back over there with the Geiger counter, and we actually found way above normal radiation signatures in and around the cab of her pickup truck. So we don't know what was really going on. By that time, she was moving out of the house, and she was carrying stuff out. The house was half empty. She was loading up the pickup truck, and she carried like a big box of stuff. One of them specifically that she remembered was a box of old photographs from her family, and she had it in a cardboard box, and it was filled almost to the top with some books, and these photographs were laying on top. She carried it out and she put it in the pickup truck, and she realized she needed to get something like a blanket or something to wrap this up so none of that stuff would blow away. She went back in the house to get a blanket that was laying on the couch in the living room that they hadn't carried out yet, and the box of photographs was sitting back in the living room on the floor again. And she looked and realized that was what she had just carried out to the pickup truck. So she carried it out to the pickup truck a second time, finished the load, left, and never went back to the house. She had friends move the rest of her stuff. She moved back to her parents' house. We don't know what was going on, but something involving radiation, if nothing else was going on, and there were some pictures that had some shadows and some other objects that might actually look like little aliens. That was here in Houston, and that was probably say 10 to 15 years ago.
Say, can you finally
Start telling us the truth.
Protect our civil liberties and
all wars now?